Hi everybody, welcome to Jenkins Boat Works. I am Chuck Jenkins. In this video, we're going to continue work on our Somme Sound sailboat build. We're so happy to be back to work on this and happy to be able to bring our progress to you. And today we're going to start working on putting together battens to run along the plank lines so that we can see if we're fair, kind of get an idea of what the planks will actually look like. And so it's pretty exciting because as we get these battens on the boat, really can kind of start to get a good idea of what the shape of it's gonna be. And it's really important as we do this to have a careful eye and look at it and just make sure that it's symmetrical and that the battens aren't bowed out. See places where we may need to fair the frames just a little bit. And so anyway, it's pretty exciting because pretty much the next step after this, well, we're still gonna have to fair down the keelson, but we're getting really close to planking. And so I'm super excited about that. We're glad you're here. If by chance you might be new to the channel, welcome. And please consider subscribing, leave your comments, and hope you'll enjoy this. You've been waiting, I've been waiting, she's been waiting, and here we are. When we last left our Somme Sound project, I had laminated and bent on what I guess will be interior keel structure parts. There's a name for them and I can't remember what it is, which is a good example of where I'm gonna be with this. It's gonna take a minute to kind of get reoriented into where we are and what we're doing. But we are going to start working on this. One of the first things we're going to have to do is cut off this extra bed here that's part of the keelson. We only need to come to about here. And then obviously this is going to have to get narrowed to the same width as the stem. And so that's what I mean when I was talking about the kind of trimming and fairing we have to do on this. And you can see this is two pieces laminated together. They're not exactly the same size, but it doesn't matter because we gotta take a bunch of this off of here to get even with the frames, and we have to do that at each station, and then try to fair it out in between. So now the other thing that I'm thinking about is we'd put these are actually white oak battens, and I got these from a son-in-law that works in a cabinet shop, and he just gets some miscellaneous leftover stuff they're going to throw away. So I had these laying around, and they worked really good for what I was needing to do when I was bending the laminations in for the floors. That was in a previous episode. But they're not quite long enough. So I'm thinking, you can see how nicely they bent. And this is about, I don't know, probably 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch square. They're not all uniform. This one up here is thinner, but they're not long enough. So we get up to here and then we run out and we can't go forward. And so part of what I want to do is make sure that everything's going to be fair. And we'd taken great care to get all these frames and everything plumb and straight and even and symmetrical. But this is the next step in that, is to go along where our planking lines are going to be and make sure that we can get these battens to bend fair around here. So that when we go to plank, we know that the planks can lay on there in a fair way. Now, one of the things that I noticed just in this regard is, well, you can see it right here. If you look here, you can see how this batten's bending, but the frame is flat here. So it might be a good idea for us to bevel this off just a little bit so that that lays more fair on there. It's especially important back here. You can see how much it's not laying flat on the frame right there. And as a result, because of this extra material on the frame here, it can't come back and lay flat against the transom. You can see I can kind of bend it a little bit, and that kind of plays with the rest of it. So we're probably gonna at least, probably for sure, fair out this batten, because we don't want to stress that. We want it to be a nice, fair, smooth lay down when we're putting those planks on. Okay, so then the next thing I'm thinking is, as I'm thinking about, I'm probably gonna use some of this, I just got some miscellaneous lumber laying around down here. And so I thought to myself, so how long do these battens really need to be? Well, it's a 16-foot boat, so we know we should be somewhere in that neighborhood. And obviously, these ones that are closer to the keel are going to be shorter, because like this particular plank, the garboard, it'll come up to about here. Well, it's not the full length of the boat. The whole boat is about right at 16 foot. I put a little screw in there, and then I took a piece of line and ran it around the sides here, like on the shear line. So like down here, all the way back to the transom, and where it should lay on the transom. And I came up at about 16 foot 3 inches. Well, that's curious, because my planking stock, which you can see laying down here, is 2 8-foot pieces of plywood scarfed together. And we lost about 2 inches in the scarf. So these pieces are about 15 foot 10 in total length. So that's curious. I'm thinking when we get to that shear strake, we may have a little issue with having material that's long enough to make that plank. Now all the rest of them would probably be fine. But there's little things that are suddenly coming up that I have to think about and be aware of. So I do think the next thing to do is go ahead and rip down some of this just 2x4 we got laying on the floor over here and make some battens that are long enough. And I may not make them for every station, every mark on every plank mark, because there's supposed to be a total of 9 planks on each side. So I'm thinking about ripping down this 2x4 to start making these battens, and I need, some that are going to be 16 feet long. And then I got to thinking about it. I was like, I still may have some cedar strip from when we built that kayak that would be 16 feet long. So I got up in my stash up there, and sure enough, I found at least 2 here that are, they're real thin, but they're about, 3/4 of an inch wide, maybe 1/4 inch thick. And I'm going to see if I can tack one down here along the shear line. Just see how it lays. So there's my shear line right there. So I just tried to run this batten just right along the top of the shear mark, so coming up above it. So this would give us an idea. So you can see that shear mark up there maybe. And it's just laying right on top of it. Same thing here. And then it comes up to the bow. And that's funky because depending on where I put the clamps, you can really alter the shape of that batten. And you want it to lay nice and smooth and fair, nice and rounded. You want any big humps or dips in it. I think I got it relatively fair, which is very encouraging. You kind of stand back and look at the shape and see. Because the thing about this is that where it's attached up here, I guess that's frame 8 here, or 10. That's about the highest that it is. So in other words, like off the floor here. And then it comes down slightly and to the back, but really drops down to the bow. So it's got a flex in order to do that. See how far down it's coming here, all the way right to the jig. And look at that. Your eye will tell you whether or not it's right or not. There's a little tiny hump in there between 10 and 12. I switched to cedar. I started using pine 2x4. It's got some knots in it. Kept getting pieces this long and then snapping where there's a knot. And these are 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch, which I put one on here and it bends around okay. One of them that didn't break. And then I thought maybe cedar would be better. And I have some really lovely cedar boards, and they're terribly expensive, but no knots anywhere in this. So these are 5/4 deck boards, not treated. And we use them to make cedar strip for canoes and kayaks, that sort of thing. So anyway, since it's 1 inch thick, I went ahead and I was going to do 1 inch, make them square, and I took it down to 7/8 because the board was just a little better than 5 inches wide. So I thought, well, I might be able to get one more strip out of there if I took it down to 7/8. Plus, it may allow it to bend easier. And quite honestly, I may take this in half. We'll just see if it'll bend. Okay, so we ripped down 3 cedar deck boards, and I was getting between 10 and 11, sometimes 12 strips out of a board, because we cut them 3/8, just about 3/8 thick, so they look like that. And they're 8 foot long. Well, the boat's 16, so we're gonna have to scarf these. So that's gonna be quite a chore. But we need them to be 16 foot long. I got a couple here that are not great. Well, this one's okay. And we've got 9 planks each side. I'm gonna use the cedar batten that I've got on the shear strake, so I needed 8 more each side, 16 times 2, 32, and I've got 33 of these. Which is going to give, well, in this one, so that's going to give me an extra one in case I've got to have something that's a little longer than 16 feet. Okay, so now we're trying to scarf these cedar strips together, and I had my original cutting box, little miter box, but this is designed for strips that are a 1/4 inch thick, so it's a 1/2 inch. I couldn't get these 3/8 ones to fit in there, so I made a new miter box here, and it's just plywood and some cheap pine, and cut through here with my Japanese saw, and then I can load these in here. Like that. Just make sure that my ends get cut off with as much length as possible, and that we don't short it. So that's just, well, that's just almost perfect right there. So I'm going to clamp this down so it doesn't move too much, and just go ahead and saw these off. And there we have it. So you can see we've got a pretty straight cut. And now those, we'll flip this one over, but that should mate up on that. Now we'll go over to our little gluing stand. I did change my mind. I'm not using thickened epoxy on this. I'm using Tight Bond. It'll dry faster. It's plenty strong. Okay, so here's just a little gluing jig. And we'll put some wax paper on here so we don't glue our battens to this jig. So that can just lay in there like that, and then we flip this one over. Just make sure it's going to match up. You want them straight, so you press them against this rail. And there we are. I honestly don't know how big the scarf joint is. It's they say go 8 to 1, and we're 3/8 of an inch thick, so probably should be a couple inches, and we're probably close to that. We're probably about 1.5. Now just make sure it's tight against the rail, and get a little pressure on there. Okay, so you can see that we've already got these two on here, and this is the one that we just did. One of the things you can do is you can look and you can see what your scarf joint looks like. See here? Well, you can't see it because of that clamp. So you can see it there. So don't have a ton of squeeze out. Should be glued up pretty good. So we got to do 16 of these, and that's 3. I suppose the first part of fairing this keelson is cutting off that extra bit up there. It's been there glued on to the other piece for months. There's one screw in there. I'm going to take that out and see if it springs back. I hope it doesn't. So the inner stem runs all the way up here, but it's notched here. So I feel sure I can cut it off right here at least. I don't want to cut off too much, but I think I'll cut it off right on this edge, and then we can see what we got to do to start fairing it in there. I have a feeling I'm going to be climbing on this jig quite a bit. I had been hesitant to do that. It was no big deal. If you liked the video, remember to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.